Excuse me.
All right, good night, good night, good night, good night. Welcome to Fatherhood Talks, the Fatherhood Think Tank. Fathers are able to come together to talk about topics that affect us as fathers in our communities, in our homes, in our families. Tonight, we have a very interesting topic for you tonight. We're going to get things started. I'm Ron Osborne Williams, Fatherhood Think Tank, as they would call it at the art show. What's the name of the person that the curator? I think that I might be saying that wrong. Usually they have art exposition.
Curator.
And that person handles
Curator.
that curator. Thank you,
Yeah.
Elder Thomas.
Yeah.
We need. And so we have a group of fathers on here tonight, and we're going to really get into our topic for tonight. Let the fathers go ahead and introduce themselves, and then we'll come back and get this topic started.
I guess I'll go first. Thomas Alberry, married 49 years now, and 2 grown kids and 7 grands.
Hey, good night, gentlemen. Vaughn Jones, father of 3, 2 boys, 18, 19, 20, and 23, my bad, and a daughter, 15.
I apologize for the late chime in. My name is Lionel Lightborn. I'm a father to a tribe of 7. I'm a husband first, then a father to a tribe of 7, and a grandfather to 1 granddaughter who's gonna have a birthday this month right here. So happy birthday to my only grandchild for now, granddaughter Lauren. So love you, baby.
Good evening, J. Rob Menard, father of 2 young adults, 1 son, 1 daughter.
Good evening, Chad Walker, married, father of 2 freeloaders, 1 female, 1 male, ages 16 and 13.
They're freeloaders.
Freeloaders. Yes, right. They are. That's what they are.
All right, Chad.
See, brother Smith.
Good evening, Lee Smith, father of 1 19-year-old son.
Okay, welcome, my brother. Welcome.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Donald might not. Donald look like he on.
Yeah, I'm kind of busy, but at this time, Donald Jones, father of 2, divorced father of 2, and I'm glad to be here tonight.
All right, great. I'm glad we. And again, one of the key parts of the Fatherhood Think Tank is that we have a majority of a multitude of representation of different types of fathers. We have married fathers, single fathers, divorced fathers. I don't think the only father we don't have sometimes I think is the widow father. We don't have too many widow fathers, but we have every other kind of father there: stepfather, father figures, grandfather.
We have a widow father, formerly a widow father.
Oh yeah, I forgot. We got a widow father. I forgot. Yeah, so we got everything covered. We got all our bases covered with all the types of fathers. And it's good because tonight we're gonna have a very interesting conversation. Our topic tonight, and I don't know if you can. Somebody thought and maybe felt like it was a play on words. Passive aggressive. And somebody questioned me earlier today and said passive aggressive, but you got positive aggressive. what does that mean? That I never heard that before. And what does that mean? And so before we get into what we as fathers may think it means to us in our conversation and what have you, I'm going to give you what a definition I found on it, and I'm gonna go close to what I kind of thought it meant when I was explaining to the other person. So this idea of what positive aggression is. Positive aggression is using our aggression in a controlling manner to achieve a positive outcome. And this, listen, by nut shut, I could call the person right now, and what I told them that this was, is this what we end up finding? It is mainly the act of being assertive and setting boundaries in life. It helps us keep our distance from toxic people. It acts as a deterrent to those who wish to waste our time or hurt us. So positive aggressive. And it's funny because, you know, more people are going to say, hey, passive aggressive. Oh, first, let me take a moment right here. I want to welcome Brother Ronald here. Brother Ronald, you can introduce yourself, how many children you have. Welcome to the Nice Fatherhood Think Tank.
Thank you, brother. My name is Ronald Mumford. I have 4 children. A daughter, 31. My oldest son is 25, 22, and 16. Now, ain't nobody else called me, so that's the 4 that I'm talking about. All right.
See, we also keep a good sense of humor because I think one of the aspects of being a father and being for real and being honest is we have to have a sense of humor as well. So let me go ahead and throw it out there to guys, this idea of positive aggressive, you know, and where have you maybe used this, or maybe you didn't even know you have used this before. What your thoughts on it is. How do you think, now that you kind of know what it is, how would you use this? And how much can this really affect us in being better fathers and guiding and teaching our children?
I'd like to take a stab at it. Positive aggression. Hey, welcome, Ronald Mumford. Always good to see you, man. Much love over here. You too, Lee Smith, and all the rest of the fathers on here. Positive aggression. I can give an example of it. I was in a meeting, and we're in a lot of meetings. If you're a social worker in any aspect, you're going to be in a lot of meetings. The longer you be in this particular field, and the more you learn, you're going to start to be able to identify the BS. And you spoke about a definition about people wasting your time. And I think when we see people wasting when we say people wasting our time, we totally think about the people that have less than us and never about the people who have more than us. And it's amazing how people who can have more than you, like your politicians, your leader, can waste your time as well at the bottom. And so once you realize somebody has been wasting your time for 10 or plus years, then this is where the positive aggression kicks in. And I wasn't really good at it first. I didn't even know what it was until I think it was Rodney Baltimore, Hot 105. Shouts out to him. He taught me this at a meeting because when I didn't know how to disagree without being disagreeable. And I think that's what positive aggression really is disagreeing with the knowledge and the know-how to be disagreeable. You understand? Or better yet, to not be disagreeable at the same time. And what he said was, he said he didn't agree with a particular strategy or topic we were talking about during the meeting. And he said these words. He said, "I respectfully disagree." And then he went on to explain what he disagreed about. The lesson I learned from that particular positive aggression was this. What he did was he affirmed how he felt, or he affirmed his disagreement about that particular topic or subject. And then what he did was he used his disagreement not to correct somebody, but actually leave the door open to give them a chance to correct themselves. And so that was the ultimate lesson, a personal lesson for me, very eye-opening lesson for me when it came to basically displaying or showing an example of what positive aggression really meant. I have a few other examples, but I'm going to let the fellas and learn from whatever comes out of this conversation. So thank you.
I think one thing we have to also look at is aggressive is subjective, right? What one person sees as aggressive, another person can see. Well, the person who you call aggressive could be like, I'm not being aggressive, I'm being passionate, I'm being a certain way. And I think for me, when I think of positive aggressive, and keeping the fact that aggressive is subjective, I think that you're positive. The aggressive comes out because you want the best for your kids, right? And so being positive aggressive is an advocating or an advocation for your kids, the mother of your children, family, period. And what other will take as aggressiveness because you want to stand up for what you know is right for your family, others are going to take that as aggressive and aggression. And I think I'm gonna use what Lightborn was saying. I think there's a way to be positive and aggressive, and I think it's not so much in tone, but it's in your verbal use of what you're saying. And I think it changes the meaning of what you're saying if you're using the wrong words, and that makes you aggressive versus using the right words to get your point across, still being aggressive, but not being threatening.
Just gonna give my 2 cents here. I think you also have with that positive aggression. We need to put also effective positive aggression, realizing that the person you're talking to, who receiving the messages you're giving them, whether it's your children or someone else, they may be fearful of it, of what's coming, because you're being so aggressive. But you also want them to follow through what is being said. And also it can be said in a very calm demeanor, as Lightborn has said. And those are my 2 cents into it right now.
I'll take a little bit of that. I agree with what the previous brothers have said. And sometimes people may mistake your passion or what you're speaking on as being aggressive. And it's hard. It's not hard. It really can be disconcerting when you're just passionate about what you're trying to get across, and they're thinking you're being confrontational or combative in your dialogue. And I know I'm raising 3 sons. I'm raising 3 Black males, and ain't nobody gonna tell me how I need to raise my sons when it comes to living in this country, living in this county, and things that I need to teach them while they're, the 2 of them that are driving while Black. I can't even sleep at night until that front door opens and I hear the chime goes off. Now I know that they're safe. I give you a really quick example. My middle son called me up, and I'm a member of Kappa Alpha Psi. I see we got other frats on the call, and that's all fine. We it's not all about that. We doing God's work here. Okay, so part of our fraternity, we have a Kappa League, okay, where the young men are being mentored on how to become men. Okay, and we give them examples. We have law enforcement people come in, we get 4 chairs, we put 2 chairs in the front, 2 chairs in the back. We teach them how to interact with the police when there stops. It's inevitable that at some point that they're going to get stopped because they're driving while Black. Make a long story, my son called me up and he said, "Daddy, can you come pick me up because my ride from basketball practice didn't come." I go pick up my kid. He was at that time at Franklin Academy over here on Griffin and US 27, up in the back over there in the cut. I go pick up my kid. I'm driving, come out onto to Griffin, going toward US 27. School bus is coming the other way. As I see the school bus coming, I speed up because I see he get ready to slow down and put his lights on So then I can't pass. I sped up, I passed him. Cop car coming out the other lane, sees that and pulls me over. Now we're about 3 or 4 cars from the light on US 27, pulls me over. I immediately I rolled my window down, put my left hand out the window, put my right hand on the steering wheel, tell my son put both his hands on the dashboard. This is what we do when you're Black. Okay, these are the conversations that we have to have. So the officer comes to me and he asked that question that is such an idiotic question. I don't know why cops ask that question, but that's what they're training. He said, "You know why I stopped you?" Now I wanted to say, yeah, we robbed the bank up the street and you caught us. Okay, but I didn't say that because my job is to make sure that we get away from this situation. Okay. So he says, "Let me see your license, registration, blah, blah, blah." By that time, now there's 3 more cop cars over there behind us. So he comes back and he says, I'm shortening the story. He says, when I saw you, when you came over to he was giving you past the school bus, you didn't stop. Now, this is where my training of how to deal with a police officer came in. I'm not going to be aggressive with him, but I'm use positive aggression. Okay. I said, "Excuse me, officer." Actually, he was a sergeant. I said, "Excuse me, sergeant. The school bus had not come to a complete stop. I saw the school bus. I saw you. I was already past the school bus when before he put his lights out." He says to me, "Well, I was on that side street and it's a curve, so I really couldn't see you. I really couldn't see what happened." So my initial response was, then why? Well, I can't say what I want to say because elders on the line, but I said, "Why did you stop me?" That's what I wanted to say. But in order to not to teach my son about things that, he needs to be aware of, he says, "Okay, I'm gonna let you go this time." I'm like, "You ain't let me go nowhere," and saying this in my mind. So we left there, and I was glad that I was angry, but I was glad that it happened, brothers, because it gave my son experience to see what we have been talking about and how you can use language like positive aggression or without being combative, so that you can come home. My thing is for him to make sure he gets home. And there's a way to speak to a police officer. There's a way to speak to someone else in the crowd, as Brother Lightborn and Brother Robert and Brother Elder already mentioned, is sometimes people will get offended because of your passion. I was passionate about my point that the school bus did not stop. But I had to let my son see how this is, so that driving while Black in Miami-Dade, Broward, in this country is real. And I'll leave it at that.
Hey, that's a very, very good point. And I think it also shows another example of how this positive aggression can work. It does, the outcome is, and I think Gene said this earlier, the idea of people's subjective interpretation of aggression. We know automatically, if you have any self-awareness of yourself and the surroundings we live in, that no matter what we're doing, even in smiling and laughing and joking, we may be perceived as aggressive. So you could be having a good time, you're aggressive. You could be mad, you're aggressive. It's just across the board that men sometimes are seen as aggressive, and men's, mainly Black men, are seen as over aggressive, even when we are being docile. So the idea of us to be able to be positive and assertive is not always something we can do, be able to do. But it's something that we really should try to practice, because it gives a very clear, and I love the way you just shared that experience, Ronald, because it was very clear. It was, listen, I know I could say things that would then be passive aggressive, right? Because you said the things you wanted to say, but you can say these things so here's what happened. This is what happened. And then that person can still feel, and I think this is a big part. that person that we're talking to can still feel respected. That's where the problem comes for us a lot of times. When the person doesn't feel like, this is our problem with passive aggressiveness. We believe that we're respecting the person when we're being passive with them, but really we telling them what we believe you're a fool because you don't recognize what we're saying and how we're saying it. We're really aggressive, but we've been, you look so beautiful, man. I think that you're such a wonderful mom, and I mean, you're a great police officer. You're one of the greatest ones we ever seen. You're saying these different kind of things, and the person didn't say, this person thinks I'm a fool. Whereas when we use this idea of positive aggressive, we are being very assertive to say, hey, this is what I understand, this is what I believe, and this is not to say who's right and who's wrong. This is just what I have to say as the man that I am, as the father that I am, as the human being that I'm being at this moment. And that's a big part of it. And people are listening and watching this. Think about this. Think about this, what we're saying right now, because this could be a dramatic change. And I'm glad that Ronald brought up the idea of how we can teach and guide our children on how they should be based on our models. Because the kids today believe that they're right about everything. They also don't believe sometimes they're also socialized in the school system, and the way they work and go to school is they with their counterparts, and they take on the same characteristics and ideas of their counterpart, that there is no such thing as this. That I was talking to her lady this weekend, and she has a child who is an interracial child. And she was saying her child doesn't even identify people by color. And I was saying, wow, that got to be rough. They got to be, I mean, I guess you don't want to really identify people with color. And she said she's convinced other people, but I said, that's a nice theory to play for yourself. But in the world we live in, when the police say, can you give me the identification of the person? They don't say, oh, he was just a guy with a red shirt on, the guy with the red shirt and bushy hair. They gonna say black male, white male, Hispanic male, Asian male, dark colored male, and that's gonna be black male too. So it's just this idea. It's a nice theory, but it's a difficult one for us to as fathers who look at things in a realistic, many times realistic, how the world perceives our children, not how we want the world to treat them, how we know the world's going to perceive them. We have to be very frank and honest and be, as I would say, this positive, aggressive presenter to the things that we sell to our children, and as well as to anybody else that we're talking to, but mainly to our children, so they can learn from us, because they learn from us. Listen, I promise you this, and I say this all the time: if you smoke cigarettes, at some point in your life, your child smoked cigarettes or tried to smoke cigarettes, not because they wanted to, because they learned from you. So we listen. It is what it is. It is what it is. So what we got to know the learned behaviors that our children pick up just from just because we are their number one teachers. Even when we're not there, we their number one teachers. And so that's why I say, don't be the absent teacher. Be the teacher that tries to be at school every day with your kids.
Anybody else want to speak? Because I'm going to speak soon. I want to give everybody else a chance to speak. Then I want to just go ahead and give another point of what that positive aggression look like from an adolescent standpoint, or to adolescent teen standpoint, particularly in the inner city, which can shed light on what a lot of the kids are going through. And so this will be a teachable moment for today's youth in real time. But I'm just going to take it from my situation. But anybody else want to go ahead, and then I'll come behind. Anybody? Going once, going twice, 25, 35, anyway. Nevertheless, positive aggression. I can remember this, I was in middle school, in Liberty City, middle school. And at I remember this particular summer, we had this various neighborhoods fighting against each other. This particular school must have fed about 8 to 10 neighborhoods fit into one school. And so I had some cousins who had transferred to the school. They came from out of town, they moved to school. So our family had a nice presence at that particular school. So my cousin got into an altercation with one or two of the guys who was from a notorious group, notorious neighborhood. Remember, we're different neighborhoods, different schools. They're from a notorious neighborhood. We're from a notorious neighborhood. So once my cousin got into the fight with him, and both of them won their fight, so whatever the case may be. And so that being my family, I drove, and I was always like this neutral guy, I had my own quirks or whatever, my pros and cons, but neutral guy. So I dated, and again, I dated different girls. So I dated girls from their neighborhood. Just gonna show you how real this is. So I just dated girls from their neighborhood. And the thing about being an adolescent and teen is whatever conflict you think you're going through at school, you feel that conflict is over when school is over. And so what I had just assumed that is the conflict. The conflict went on recess when we went on recess. And then we'll pick this conflict back up once we get back in school. That's my assumption. Again, I'm a teen, I'm an adolescent. I don't know no better. And matter of fact, the guys we beefing with, they don't know no better. And so I go to see this girl in this other neighborhood. And the few of the guys are a little older than me. They might have had me about 2 or 3 years. And they recognized me knowing that they was already in beef with my cousin. So they was in the car, they was already driving. I'm on the bike going to see the girl. They pulled to a stop sign, they called my name naturally. You're young, somebody call your name, you assume they know you, you drive to the car. And so I turned my bike around, went to go to the car to see who was calling me. Bam, car took off. Get back to school after the recess. A kid and a friend of mine, I would call him a friend. I can call him a friend now, but he wasn't one of my, what you call top tier friends. You understand what I mean by top tier friends? You got your top 5, and then you got your other bench. And he was one of my bench friends. He wasn't the top tier. And he kept trying to get my attention, and me being Mr. whatever, popular, whatever, I'm just like, okay, we gonna talk, whatever. And then he said a name that got my immediate attention. And he said the name, I was like, oh, okay, what's up? Now he got my immediate attention. And then he proceeded to tell me that, he said, man, remember, and he told me about the situation. He said, remember, it was a car that called you, and you started to come towards the car, and the car pulled off. I'm like, okay, only person can know that is me and the people in the car. And he said who the guy was at the time. And just to make a long story short, that guy is serving like triple double life sentence right now. And so he was like, that was me in the car. He said, man, they had planned to shoot you. Okay. And he said, man, I kept on, he's like, man, I was like, nah, man, y'all can't do this. My friend, this is my friend. Keep in mind, they're in the car, they're between the ages of 16 and 19. He's in the car, he got to be every bit of the age of 13 to 14. That's his age. He's 13 to 14. They're every bit of 16 to 19 years old. And here is this 13 to 14-year-old. He says, and he's like, no, and I mean, he's standing up firm, talking about positive aggression. And I'm going to tell you something. The most positive and powerful positive aggression I ever seen that saved my life was no out of the mouth of a child. No, just a simple no in influences, and in some cases authorities of guys that was older than, not only just guys, badass guys that was older than him, and he stood firm and protected just the integrity of me being his friend. His simple no and him standing firm on that no is what saved my life and had me here today in this particular discussion. And so to talk about a positive aggression, which means you got to sometimes use a positive word and know those positive words and stand and affirm yourself in those positive words to guess what? To sometimes stop people from, guess what? Getting to the aggression. You understand? And that particular young man, and the saddest part, the saddest part about all that? I don't remember his name to this day, but I remember that story. And that young man saved my life with a simple no. And I guess how that works in real time is the power of no, that these young people don't understand how powerful it is, because sometimes, and just to stick with your no and to be very aggressive with your no, to let people know that you mean no, can actually save the other people who just didn't have the courage or the guts to say no. And so that's what I mean about positive aggression. On so many levels I could think about this, but that's just one in my personal life I just wanted to share.
Yeah, and Lightboy, and I love that. I love that scenario, because that's another. Listen, we never know when people looking out for us. You know that story so many times. And listen, it was more than just, I don't want to start becoming a preacher, but it was more than just him who saved you. It was you who saved yourself, and how you treated him at a time. Because normally, when you have not treated that person in that car, they say, yeah, get that. Let's get this one. Yeah, let's get it. I don't like him anyway. That's what happens. But it's very hard because we are still humans to say, hey man, we're gonna get him. And because I think that's his cousin. And to be sitting there saying, man, that's a good dude, man. I know him. He my friend. Find his cousin, don't do nothing to him. He a good guy. And it take that, and little people know that all the time. We have people that stand up like that all the time. We just don't know it. You never knew that until he told you that. You just thought it was just some random people calling you on the bicycle. Right now, we wouldn't even have Lightborn here to even give us the knowledge and break down and give us the controversy and the preaching and the cheering and the hopping. We wouldn't have any of that. We'd have been just heard about a young man who was shot down on a bicycle. And that happens so often, man. So another great example of this positive aggressiveness that doesn't, because I think when the people thought of when I was presenting this topic to someone today saying what it was, they was like, oh, that sounds negative. How can it be positive if it's aggressive? And I said that right back to this idea is that it's how we perceive aggression. And not only perceive aggression, that I seen a beautiful video today. I'm following this guy now. It's called, I was in New York over the weekend. It's called Cute Couples. It's called Cute Couples. And the guy is, I guess, on TikTok or whatever. And and I guess he's also on Instagram. And he walks up to couples and he sees them, asks them, are they couples? And it was so ironic because I watched about 12 of them. And every one of those things are all different races, nationalities, ages of those people. I heard this one thing over and over again. Laughing, they make me laugh. Why you like them? They make me laugh. I like to laugh. I like their smile. And it was all positive things that the reason why they were still in their relationship, right? And I guess you'll say, well, that's the reason because he set the question up to be positive. But on the normal circumstances, any day you ask somebody something, it's always negative. They will always present. We hear people every day present to us the negative outcome instead of looking at the solution or the positive or something that could be even assertive to happen for us. So we have to sometimes begin to think about that and change that narrative for ourselves, especially as fathers, because what we present to not just our kids, but we present to our partners, our children's mothers, to our other friends who are fathers, is what they will most of the time conform to. And then that's where we get into a lot of this conformity where people all think everything is negative. There's nothing positive, nothing good going on. There's nothing great that happens. Here's a story. Everybody know Pac-Man Jones, right? Football players know Pac-Man Jones. I seen an interesting post today about how I forget the football player, but he passed away. He used to play for Cincinnati Bengals or something like that. He had two sons. Pac-Man Jones adopted his two sons after he died. And his oldest son right now has a full scholarship to Ohio State, something like that, as a wide receiver. This guy was a wide receiver. I wish I could remember the name. I'm not really into football like that. But I thought about that they were talking about Pac-Man Jones. And I thought about this amazing thing is, if I say Pac-Man Jones, the first thing you guys would think about is how he fumbled the bag, all the crazy stuff he did in his life. How we could name 1,000 things that we would perceive as negative about Pac-Man Jones. But all that to me means nothing, because I think in the long run of this positive thing he did that I just happened to catch and run into on a post, because the son is got a full scholarship to Ohio State to play football. He was recruited before he even played football. He was already recruited and got a scholarship before he even played football his high school years.
That was Chris Henry's kid.
What's his name?
Chris Henry Jr.
Okay, yeah, there we go. So here we're talking about, and thanks, Rhonda, for having that knowledge, because I mean, I just seen the post, and all I can think about is a perfect example of, we know all the negatives about somebody, and never do we highlight or talk about the positive things that they do, that a lot of times that probably will outshadow all the negative things they ever did. But we only focus on the negatives. And I think that's one of the couples in the couples I said is, and I think it was a lady from Israel married a husband. They were not even from the same culture. They was put together, but they've been married 48 years. They were put together in Israel. The lady said, stop always looking for the negative in the person. When you have the negative, you got to look for the other side. And if you look for the other side in the people, you will definitely see that it outweighs the negatives that you face with them. And so that's a strong thing that sometimes we have to look at in this conversation and talking about positive aggression, because we're talking about being positive and being assertive and doing these things a certain way. So,
I'm gonna take a little aspect from Lightborn's story that I don't want it to be overlooked. And that's a respect aspect. You can have all the positive aggression that you want to have, but there has to be a level of respect on the people who are receiving it that they have for you in order for it to be received by them, and for them to follow through. Like the guy, like in his story, the guy could have said no all he wanted to. If they didn't respect him, they'd have been like, yo, man, shut up, man. Or you're next. You see what I'm saying? So it's a matter of also who are you and the type of person that you are when you're displaying this positive aggressive. Because if you're not a man of I want to say a man of honor, a man of courage, a man of respect, it's gonna be you're gonna be looked at a lot differently, and you're gonna be taken a lot differently than those who do have those attributes. And I think it's important that we have to say, well, you can be positive aggressive, but make sure you have the attributes that follow it in order for you to be heard and understood, rather than to be looked at and judged. And those are two different things.
Ronald Mumford. You said I called your whole name, Ronald Mumford. Listen.
I thought I did something wrong. You called my whole name, I thought something.
Go
ahead, bro.
I was thinking about, because I want to give shouts out to some police officers that's doing some leaps and bounds and some awesome service in our community, like the Urban Fords, like the Darius Morse, like the Stephanie, Stephanie gonna kick my behind, and like the Noel Pratts out of Miami Garden. And I think about the type of positive aggression that they had to endure. And if you're talking about these particular Black officers, just to rise to the level of chief, or the rank of chief. You understand? And just to have that, and even in my city, we have a Black chief who don't have any. You understand? I mean, this is what you call positive aggression. That you can have a whole almost 2 careers, more than 30 years, maybe close to 40 years in law enforcement, and never have that type of controversy. Never have no shooting involvement. You understand? You're talking about positive aggression. So I like to see those positive aggressions when we're talking about and that's because they're raised with not just the residue, but they're raised with the resources and the residual, not residue, but the residual of righteousness that it takes to rise to the rank of chief as a Black police officer with no blemish of having to take a life. You understand? And so with that, I have to pay homage to all those particular officers, and particularly those Black officers that we rarely give credit to. And I don't want the ills of, and guess what, the injustice of that particular profession to overshadow all the success that has happened in our culture, just because of that positive aggression, where you have raised to you've gotten to the ranks now that you can actually correct it. You can make the corrections. But then again, you had to be, first of all, be in the practice of saying, you know what? I'm not going to stand here and allow this to happen. And guess what? That note that little boy displayed in that particular car, that note is just as powerful as an adult. Most adults can't even accomplish it, especially when they're under the influence of a power that's being unjust or a power that's being wrong, and they don't feel that they're in the position or their no is worth anything. That's positive aggression. And so I think all of us still, even as grown people and grown men, still don't have the guts and the spirit that young man had to save my life, to save the lives around us right now, be it whatever profession that we in. And sometimes we just go along just to get along. I think they said that back in the day, right? Now, our parents go along just to get along. And I don't think going along gets along is a great example of positive aggression. So we need a lot more positive aggression. But again, I think we're all challenged with it. I think we all have our own personal stories, be it that we may have succeeded at positive aggression or we may have failed at it. You understand? And that's just another example of positive aggression. I think one of the greatest examples of positive aggression that all of us can relate to is the civil disobedience of the civil rights movement. That is positive aggression like a mug. The global positive aggression would be Mahatma Gandhi and all those different types of movements. So I think we can expand into all those different aspects of positive aggression and show how it's just not a limited thing, but it's a thing that has always been happening way before we start coming up with this particular concept.
I'd like to say something real quick. I really like what brother Robert Menard, hope I'm pronouncing your name right, brother, said about the respect factor, because we can say, you can say a lot of things, and sometimes it's not so much about what you say, it's how you say it. And to get into a conversation with someone and they don't respect what you're saying, well, like you said, they're not going to receive it. But I think it's, the way that we carry ourselves, like this format here, and I got to apologize. I've been trying to get on this format on many nights, but, conflicting, schedule and children and wife and all stuff going on. I've been wanting to get on this call, and I'm glad I was able to get on this call today, because I know the caliber of men that's on this call, that we can all learn from each other and feed off each other, and we can go forward. So I really like the fact, what Brother Menard said about, that respect factor. And I think when we carry ourselves in a way that is respectful, that is with integrity, that is with, the confidence that, that we have, then that positive aggression, it won't be looked at as confrontational or combative. You know what I mean? I really believe that, and sometimes, sometimes people are going to mistake it. They're going to mistake it. But how you respond to that, I think, is where we have to, continue to, be in our minds that, okay, they're not receiving it now. I could cuss their ass out right now, and then now it's gonna go to something else. But I'm gonna maintain my positive aggression so that hopefully they receive it. And you know what? Sometimes you can have a conversation, they may not receive it right there. They may receive it later on that night. They may receive it the next day after they had a chance to. Because sometimes I get into situations with my wife, and I'd be like, I'm not giving up on this one right here. I say, you go upstairs, I'm gonna stay downstairs, and we'll revisit this thing later on. And then after I process it, I was like, damn, she was right. Now I gotta go to Olive Garden and get some soup and salad or something. I gotta smooth this thing over, because if you want a piece, you ain't get no peace if there ain't no peace. All right. So we learn from that. That's it, brothers. That's it for me.
Well, as you said that, Ronald, it made me also begin to think about this in a whole nother aspect of coming back to being fathers, working in relationships with mothers, with our wives, with our children's mothers, and maybe even with our other family members who don't sometimes have a full understanding, or sometimes have a misunderstanding of father and men all in general.
Especially blended families, bro. Especially blended families.
Right. I have to tell people very often that we have this idea that we assume that everyone understands what a father is, how fathers operate, and what it looks like. But it doesn't really operate. TV and movies can't give you the true, situation. You might be trying to say, oh, it's this assimilation. No, it's not, because you're talking about people who also are dealing with their own human issues. So as a man, and their insecurities and their jealousies and all the dynamics that comes with them and being this man or being this father. And so often that in looking at being able to use this positive aggressive behavior can probably solve a lot of problems that you have in this communication sometimes. Because I think a lot of times when I'm looking at dealing with couples and relationships and families, is this idea of people are just being aggressive. Are they being passive aggressive, but not being positive aggressive to say, what's our final goal for this? I want my child to be able to do this. Well, I don't want him to be able to do this. And next thing you know, now we in an argument about who knows right about what the child should be and what not the child should be. But to be able to be a positive aggressive is to say, what's the final outcome of this? Because this is the reason why I'm saying. And let me hear, and now hear when you use this aggressiveness, you also say, let me validate what you're saying. But often the time is a perceived that as men, we want to take over conversation. Biggest thing, any conference or any place I ever be with, sometimes you find yourself littling yourself in these places, especially when it's woman dominated. And I know that because I work in an environment where woman dominated. You begin to sometimes become an introvert about things, even if you're an extrovert. I'm an extrovert, so I got a good idea plan. I got stuff for everything. But you realize you don't want people to say, God damn, here go this man thinking he's gonna tell us everything. We don't need him to tell us how everything operates. Because in their mind, it's an idea of oppression. And we have to understand, that's what I understand. The idea of I come and the belief that I have a certain privilege and I'm gonna come and press what I think they should do. Even if what I'm gonna do will help the situation. I try to find a way to talk to one of the women there and say, hey, you should suggest this to the group. One that I know that's tight one. Suggest this to the group. Oh, that's a great idea. See, I'm good then. I ain't got to get anything for it, but I know it's gonna be better for whatever we're talking about and what's happening. And then that person, if they want to, they can say, I was talking to Brother Ron. He told me me and him was talking about this, and that's the way we do it. But we have to be mindful. As men, we have to be mindful of the unbalancedness between us and our women. And a lot of times we're not. Sometimes we just saying, well, just because women say they're independent and they doing all the independent thing, we say, okay, we're gonna show you. We're gonna show you. You be independent, let's go, and we get in a competition. But we don't have to get in a competition because a lot of times, no matter what the competition long term will be, we have a major disadvantage. Unless even the most minuscule, tiny, feeble man will still have a disadvantage because other men will look to him before he look to his 6'3", 300 muscle pound wife. They're not gonna look to his wife, they're gonna look to him. They're gonna say, hey man, his wife could be, tearing down the trees, killing the animals, doing everything. They still gonna, because that's the biasness of the sexism we have in the society we live in, and so we have, as very conscious men who understand this, we have to at some point be very proactive with that, and think about that.
Hey Ron, let me ask you a question. And we got a Gen Z and a Gen Z and a generation, what do you call it? The one before that? X? So
Yeah, X and Z.
Yeah, so I think we get an X and a Z on here. How they feel about it? So Lee, you represent Generation X. Jay, you represent Gen Z. What is positive aggression to you guys? How y'all see this particular topic? Lee and Jay, it's up to you guys. What did that mean to you guys?
You know, like last time, I'm basically taking everything in. As far as me, so I was a lot of, I mean, you guys don't know me, but I was ex-military, and one thing that one of the staff sergeants told me, he told me that I have no tact. And you know, I'm like 19, 20. I didn't know what that means. And the next day he told me that I say all the right stuff. I just go about saying it the wrong way. So like you guys were saying with positive aggression, um a lot of times is how you say something too. I mean, and I know a lot of people can attest to this. Is the one who's the loudest in the room is usually the one that's wrong. Like sometimes it's okay not to be the loud one in the room, but just knowing about knowing how to go about getting your point across. And these days, like everybody is sensitive. So you also have to know how to use tact and try to get your point across without offending somebody, because Lord knows if you offend the wrong person these days. Like I may be one of the few what is it, Gen Zers that go by the quote unquote old ways of the world. I don't you know, I don't get offended easily, but the people out in the world, you never know who you're gonna run across, basically. So you just have to be mindful about how you're gonna um spew out whatever information you're gonna spew out to anybody. Uh I don't have any problems with positive aggression. I try to be as tactful as possible. I'm a chess player, so I like to, I guess, think of every possible outcome that may happen with this conversation. I mean, and I'm sure as fellas, we do that with our ladies, with our wives, when we have to relay some information to her, and we're trying to figure out how we're going to tell her without her getting ticked off at us about it. So, you know, yeah, that's my take on it.
I like that word you introduced, tact. Yeah, that's a very old school word. That you done skipped a few generations on that word. But tact is a fancy with another, what is a synonym of finesse. And so,
Basically.
yeah, I got you. I love that word, tact.
You do that for him.
Jay, how you feel about it, Bam? How you feel about the positive aggression subject? Jay? Okay, Jay probably had his son's basketball game again. Football, one or two.
Did Lee say he's a Sagittarius and he was in the Army?
No, sir. I said nothing of the sort. I'm a Virgo, but I was in the military.
Okay, I was in the bathroom. I heard that. Yeah, but I'm an ex-military also. I was a staff sergeant when I got up. E6. That's all.
Hey, brother, but Elder Light Brown, yeah, man, the man was a Sagittarius.
I'm a Sagittarius.
You trying to see if y'all had,
I'm a Sagittarius
a lot
too.
more in common than the military? I tell you,
yeah, I'm a Sag too.
But I like that aspect you said with the positive aggressions, Lee, because again, until you really gave your perspective, we would just be under but you know what? I would be honest, we would be under the generational assumption that you don't think like you do, or maybe, and I told this to my daughter last night. I said it's for a child, right, and particularly a young adult child. I said it's probably the most difficult thing in the world to try to rescue somebody who was always rescuing you, right? And so, how does a child rescue a parent who may need help? And then, how does a parent really ask for help from a child that they're used to rescuing? Talking about positive aggression. How do you switch those roles and do it with the love and appreciation, the humility to really transfer the companionship and the integrity that needs to say, you know what, I need you. I need to hear from you. I need to know, or just simply, I need you. And so the positive aggression and just letting the person know that you need them, even though you're used to them needing you, is just another aspect that just opened up for me. So thank you for that perspective, B.
Well, let me chime in real quick. Lionel, I mean, we had this conversation Father's Day, but it's like as men, well, my thing, I feel like as a man, your main two roles are to protect and provide, and it's like it's not seen as a manly thing to do for men to I guess have a shoulder to cry on or have an outlet. So a lot of times we keep that stuff bottled in because I know with me, a lot of times I feel like talking about a situation isn't gonna do anything. Like I'm the one that has to I have to figure out how to get myself and everybody else out this hole. So me sitting here talking to you about it, I'm just wasting time. I need to figure out a game plan. And I think a lot of guys think like that, and that's where we really screw up is when we don't actually open ourselves up to being vulnerable to having someone to talk to, or I don't know if you guys heard the story about the clown Pagliacci, and I'm just paraphrasing. So there's this clown. He's going to the doctor, and the clown is sad, and the doctor, he's like, what's wrong with you? And the clown, he's telling the doctor how sad he is and everything, and he's boohoo crying and everything. And the doctor is telling the guy, he should go see this clown that's in town. His name is Pagliacci. And the guy in the office, he starts crying even more. He's like, "But sir, I am Pagliacci." So it's like where do you go when you're the one who needs the help? Like who helps the helper? Basically, what Lionel was saying.
Yeah, let me say this. I think this is why we have this fatherhood think tank. It gives you an opportunity, because I think that many opportunities, when you think about it, a lot of people say, hey, let me do something one-on-one. Let me do it with my woman. Let me do it with my family. And what happens is it doesn't become normalized. It becomes, when you come into a group like this with multiple fathers, and I think that so often we like to go look for people who have the same problems we have, to think that's going to solve our problems. But it can't, because they don't. We all have the same problem, and we probably looking at the solutions the same way. Sometimes that's why we need to talk to fathers who are married, because guess what? They obviously know how to solve that problem, because they remain married. They're staying married. They're negotiating. They're working with their partner and their wife and their children in that way, as well as you might even sometimes want to even talk to the divorced father, because he can show you the prevention that you might not want to get into. Yeah, she might be this way, this might happen, these things may occur, but it gives you another option. So that diversity of men and fathers that can normalize your experience. So often our experiences are not normalized. We think that the experiences only are, we the only one facing them, the only one coming up against that actual thing, when that's what women getting over. That's what women are at the advantage in this. Because guess what? The women believe that they got a sisterhood. And they believe that all their issues is the same. And so they can go listen to Van Zant, talk to them, and all say, and they all solved by Van Zant coming talking to them. Man, we don't think like that. We think that nobody know the issues and the problems we have, and so nobody can solve it, and we got to go out on the mountain and try to solve it ourselves by ourselves. When really, if we go in a group of men like our ancestors did, and sit in the men's circle, and listen to our elders who have experienced more, we probably have come out better for the whole thing. You know, but a lot of times we have been taught to go alone. Be a man or be an island on your own. Don't be vulnerable to nobody. Don't let anybody think you're vulnerable. Because if another man knows that you might cry, then he gonna have dominion over you. He gonna know you weak. Hold on, because you definitely can't let no woman see you cry, and she gonna run you left and right. When all of those things is ridiculous, because as a man and as a father, you're still a human. That's the biggest part. You're still a human. You still breathe air, you still bleed blood, and you have emotions. You're not Stonewall. You're not like, oh, nothing affect me. Because if you believe, once we start, and listen, I'm gonna tell you this, and I'm gonna say this, and one of the reasons why, and I wish Rohan was here tonight. One of the reasons me and Rohan talk so much about really advocating and pushing this out, it was during the time of having this conversation where there were so many fathers killing their partners and their children. We still got a lot of it today. And me and Rohan had said, what if they came to the meetings? What if they came to the meetings? Would they have seen another opportunity, another way to resolve that situation instead of taking that drastic decision? Because it's almost this idea there is no result, nothing they could do. They are instead of being in a tunnel, they find themselves in a cave. And when someone is in a cave, they know there's no way out. So they prepare themselves to die there, instead of looking for the light to find a way to get out and try again. So I think that is a big part, brother, what you just said, Smith, that's so important. And definitely, I want the people who are watching in the audience is to know that it's so many of us. The guys who here loyal, we ain't gotta be here. We ain't gotta waste our time to come on this call. But we have all, and I haven't met a man who come on here religiously. Like they go to church. I have a man come in here religiously say he gets more out of coming here than he gave. Let me say this again. He gets more out of coming here than he gives when he comes here, because it helps him reevaluate and think about who he is and what he should be in the normalization of these other men who are here. In a positive, and let me say that in a positive sense, because we do have very toxic environments where men are that don't have the same kind of outcomes. So I just wanted to put that in mission.
I don't think I was part of what you said, which I don't want to be overlooked, because it's the sense of weakness. A lot of times men get into a hole because of that weakness. It's like, yo, man, I'm not, and it's so much, the weakness is shameful. You see what I'm saying? And it's not so much that you want to, you don't want to seem like a failure. Because I couldn't figure this out myself. Because if I was a real man, I could figure it out myself. I won't need anybody else. And I think that's the biggest misconception that's out there, is the fact that because you can't figure it out, you're a failure, you're not as much of a man as you think you should be. It's when you seek the help, realizing that you can't solve it, which makes you more of a man, because you're able to understand your limitations and you're able to reach out. Understanding who you are and what you can do is the bigger thing than living in failure and living in misery. You see what I'm saying? So for me, I think that as a man, you have to understand that not being able to solve a problem, like Ron is saying, is you being human. But reaching out to get help for the problem is you being a man. And there's a difference in how we have to start looking at things.
But I was thinking about.
I love it. Listen, that's why this is important. Because you can hear me say whatever, but I love what Gene just said. That sound what I said made me feel like shit. Gene should have said it in the first place. But I think that's an important part of how this operates. What I thought it was saying was good, but now I feel like what Gene said was 10 times better. And that's how we sometimes receive these things. in a group of men like this?
I was thinking about, I did a training like some years ago. It was called, the topic of the training was called Courageous Conversation. And so with that, the premise of that particular training was just simply to have the guts to have a needed conversation that you needed to have that can either benefit your life for having it, or the life of somebody that you need to have it with. And so I have two friends, right? Each on a life sentence. And I got a diverse friend, so I don't want y'all to think all my friends are thugs and gangsters. These particular friends, actually, they were not thugs and gangsters. This is the strange part about it. They were actually what you call professional, well-to-do men. So both of these friends I'm getting ready to speak about were well-to-do men. Both of them are on life sentences. No, one got a death sentence, the other one is on life sentence. Both were in relationships. Both never been to jail, no convictions, whatever. This is why they had the jobs they had before they were locked up. Both in jail for high-profile murders of their spouses. Now, with that, I guess I'm saying that to say this. Then I have a third friend right now who just recently went through a divorce. And so because of the two prior friends that I had that have killed their spouses in those high-profile murders, brought me to this point where to have a conversation I didn't have with those two friends that did kill their spouse. And so when he was going through his divorce and he was getting the bad end of the stick, he just put like this. He was like, you ever been at your right self? He was at his best self and getting a wrong result, right? And I had to look within me and ask myself, you know what? Do you know what that feel like? Do you remember what that feel like? And I'm like, yeah, I do remember what that feel like. And so once I had to have a discussion with myself, first before I went to have a discussion with him, I'm like, oh yeah, I do remember what that feel like. And then I went to him, so we started talking. I'm like, mostly when you see somebody going through some type of trauma like that, a crisis, you want to do more listening than talking. But at some point, you're going to have that courageous conversation. And I had to ask him one question in a 2-hour conversation. I just asked him one question. I think I asked him like an hour and 30 minutes into that conversation. I said, did you think about killing him? And you know what he did? He thought about it. And you know what he said? Yes. And I said, if you thought about killing him, how were you going to do it? And he started running through these different scenarios and stuff like that. The reason I asked him that question, the reason I gave him the opportunity to walk through that scenario is so we can get it off the table and get him not back to where he used to be, but beyond where he is. And we were able to get him beyond. Now, guess what? She's moved on. She's got married. He's moved on. And guess what? He's engaged and he's about to get married. But this thing didn't play out. See, you watch a movie and you think it'll play out in a 90-minute sitcom. It doesn't work like that. Not real life. Real life will play out over, and that divorce played out over a 5-year span. And so I had to, when I did remember to call him just to let him know somebody was thinking about him and he wasn't in that particular situation alone, only because of the two prior friends that I have that's actually serving a life sentence right now for killing the spouse of their loved ones. So that's just another aspect of positive aggression, which means you may have to ask some questions about some real feelings that you're afraid to ask.
Like Bram, I mean, all I can ever do is just love, and it is such the right thing to do, because no one is willing to say, "Oh, did you think about killing them? Oh, did you think about killing yourself?" These things put these things in the forefront. They bring them, if they're in the unconscious, it puts it in the conscious, and it makes it realistic. And then now I got to think about all the realistic viewpoints about this. Now if you do this, what the kids gonna do? How your mom gonna have take care of you? Ain't you paying a mortgage? So all of these realistic things that be like, yeah, this is probably not a good idea. Probably not a good idea. But so often we have been told in traditional, Let me tell you about these traditional practices. Oh, don't say anything because it may trigger. Don't give the person the idea to do these things. Well, people already got the idea. Human beings already got the idea. The average human being thinks about their own mortality every day. Sometimes, especially in the Black, we had a brother talk about that last week. In his own mentality, that's the reason why he had a child, because he didn't believe that he was even going to be alive. So he said, let me help me get this girl I like. I think she'll be a good mom. Let me put one in her because I might not be here. And so when people are telling us some of these things, we have to remember that some of these practices and ideas, they don't work for us. We need to get things a little bit different. We need a different prescription than the ones that they're prescribing for everybody else. And so I love that you brought that up, because that's another example of positive aggressive. Positive aggressive. See, when people dealing with people in these situations, suicide, one to commit homicide, they being passive aggressive with the person. They placating the person. So when the person, you fool around and placate them too much, you're gonna be one of the people in the victim list. You know, that happens a lot, because you wonder how you became one of the members of the victim, is because you wasn't real with them. You didn't say, hey man, I don't want you to kill me. Definitely. Listen, imagine telling somebody, I don't want you to kill me. Definitely. Because I got some things to live for. I'm sure you got some things to live for. And have you ever heard negotiators? And we don't hear too much about negotiators and what conversations they have with people at these times. But these are the kind of serious, real things, aggressive, positive aggressive things that they say to the people who are on the cliff, or who got the gun to somebody's head, or got the gun to their head. Because it's got to be real for them to begin to really think about it. Real talk moves things. Fake talk, it is what it is.
Well, we got Ron, we got Brian Persons in the house. I don't know if it's video up, but Brian, if you're in the house, you want to say something, we all ears, baby. All right, this video not in place, but anybody else about this positive aggression? Please don't let us do all the talking, because we will. Anybody else got anything to say about the positive aggression story? About what it is? I mean, when you had to be positively aggressive, when you simply put positive aggression is just basically standing up for somebody. When you feel like you really had to stand up for somebody, especially somebody you didn't know, but simply because it was just their right for you to stand up for.
Actually, Lightborn, I'm sorry. What's up, Pastor? To step in real quick and say this. You guys said almost everything that pertains to what a life situation is for a man to become a man, especially about being a passive aggressive type person. As Ron pointed out and Jay pointed out earlier, it's so hard at times to be a big burly black man and actually just let them know you're very passionate about what you're doing instead of being mistaken for aggression. But for what you gentlemen said and all the examples you brought up, there's not much that I personally can say, because y'all hit everything on the head.
Right, the fact that you said that, because this conversation is like a CPR. And sometimes CPR is for people who are either unconscious or conscious, rather, or not breathing. And when it comes to our communication as men, it seems like our communication styles are unconscious or not breathing. It's because we've been subdued into that. You understand? And that we shouldn't have anything to say because we're doers. You understand? But I'm like, you got to understand, in order to be a doer, you got to be a thinker first. You understand? And see, people think like doing just don't happen by osmosis or instinctively. And it can happen instinctively, but I'm like, no, if you're doing something creative or positive or productive, then there was a lot of thought that went into whatever productivity came out of your doing. And so a lot of us need CPR, and that's all these conversations are. It's verbal CPRs, communicative CPRs that, guess what, get us back to life. to get us back conscious into what we are and what we need to not only to value who we are. You understand? I'm not no damn bull or no ox. You understand? Where I don't have feelings and my feelings don't count. And I think this may be one of the major reasons for divorce and single parenthood. It's because when you don't feel like you don't have no worth, right? You have all this work and no worth. Then I think the movie Fences actually plays into that, because I think he had all that work and he thought his whole purpose was just work. But when he met the side piece who made him feel like he had some worth, that's when he ended up having a baby. And, not saying that the woman, because he had a great wife, but I don't think that was a more marital thing. I think that was a more societal thing that victimized his marriage. And so I think there's so many different aspects of when it comes to positive aggression that, it gives us the avenue to talk about, and that we should talk about. Positive aggression is basically your right as a man to discuss who you are, what your needs are, and what you want. Because you're giving the world everything they want and need, but really who's giving you what you want and need as a man?
I'm glad you said that, Lightborn, because when I was thinking about positive aggressive and breaking it up, because there's certain things that you have to be aggressive about, right? You have to aggressively seek educating yourself. You have to aggressively seek being that positive person in your relationship to make it work. You have to aggressively seek being with your kids in order to be the father that they need in their life, especially if you're a father who's not in the home. And that's when that aggressiveness needs to be 10 times more than a father who's in the home, because you're looking to actively be that part. And all this stuff is led by that positivity that you really have. That's the driving force behind the aggressiveness. Because until you start to use your positivity to drive your aggressiveness, you're just spinning your wheels doing nothing.
Absolutely.
And so I think it's very important that when we put these two things together, you have to understand that one is I'm trying to figure out the right way to say this, but one is the purpose, the other is the engine. Your positivity is your purpose, which is going to drive the aggressiveness and how you should handle life situations.
Yeah. Listen, I
Brian,
don't know. Listen, I like it.
Brian, you ain't up yet. Trying to give you opportunity, Brian. Well, go ahead and handle your business, Ron. I'm sorry. Go ahead and handle your business, Dr. Ron.
Yeah. Hey, listen. One thing I can say is when we have these conversations, and I'm saying this to the audience, people watching who are going to watch a replay of this, man. It is 90 minutes. These 90 minutes, man. Listen, I've been to many conferences, sat in many round circles and men's circles, especially as a therapist, and these things, and I just kind of sit there and just shake my head. Nothing compares to the kind of conversation we were having here on Tuesday and Wednesday nights. Now I paid all this money to go to conferences and sit in a man circle and talk about these things. And here it is, we do it free, and really get, listen, what you getting out of this, man, is just even opportunities to think. And I think this what Gene just shared is the idea to have the opportunity to hear these things and think about them. And think about how they fit for you and what you're doing in your life and how you're trying to operate. Without a doubt, if you're not being a proactive, aggressive dad, either in the house or out of the house, your kids are gonna be lacking from that. The question is, how do you get to? And because I think I want to be very clear, because I think that I want to clear this up, because I think at some point people gonna think about aggression as how the lawyer kind of told me when I was saying I wasn't seeing my daughter the way I wanted to see her. He was like, just go to the goddamn house. You are dad, and just tell him on that you coming over there. And you, I said, no, I can't. What? He said, you can. You the father. You can do that. I said, no, man, I don't think I can do that, Jack, because she live in a whole nother county. She live in she live in Sanford, you know what I'm saying? Somewhere completely different from me. I don't know nobody out there. Them jokers couldn't, and she could say, hey, this guy that came to our house threatening us. Because guess what? I'm trying to be aggressive about being with my child and getting my child. But there's another way to do it. Think positive. Find the positive outcomes and the ways to be able to do it. And so I wanna give that one, everything you give them this warning, a fine print reading. When we hear the word aggressive, be mindful what we mean by aggression and how dangerous aggression can be for you at any moment that you're trying to use it. Even if you think you're using it in a positive way, you might want to check with another brother, check with another sister and see, hey, this is what I'm going to do, how I'm going to do this. What you think about it? And they might say, you going my house like that, we might shoot you. But you thinking that you're going to do positive aggressive. You might be thinking that. So I want to close us out with that, thinking about that, because I don't want people to go out and say, well, they said be aggressive. They said, be aggressive, stand up for what be strong. And if people don't understand me, that's their problem. I need to be aggressive. The part of this that you might be missing is the positive statement that we're saying, because if you're going to be positive, you can't be negative. It got to be.
Ron, I believe, and I'm going to refer back to Lee's comment earlier. When he said tact, the guy told him he said he got all the right things, he just don't have any tact. And so I guess when we put positive aggression together, as opposed to being tact, when you talk about having tact and action is actually tactical. You understand?
Say it again. Say it again, like boy, so they can hear that. That's important. Say it again.
So having tact with action, because you can have tact with no action. You understand? But when you have tact with action, that makes you tactical. And just like all the just armed forces of the world, they call their enforcements when it comes to things that's something that you're being denied. And I'm telling this to the fathers right now, anytime that you have a right that you're being denied and a justice that you're being denied, then you need to have right tact, but be tactical, which is that positive aggression that we're talking about. Just use them when you talk about positive is just in the policies that's at your disposal to use. So when you see positive, think policies. That should be the first thing. Positive equal policies, right? Aggressions means that you're within your right, you understand, to do or be what it is you need to be and have the rights you need to be to make sure that your kids get to the outcomes that they need. And guess what? And deserve. And so that's all I wanted to say to close out on my end.
Well, that being said, if nobody else has any other comment, I want to thank you guys, your Father's Night, for sharing the stuff you share, especially Ronald and Lee for coming on here tonight. Man, you guys really added into our conversation. Welcome you to come back anytime, any Tuesday, any Wednesday. For those who for fathers out there who might want to get in this conversation, we have tomorrow night. We have a private father conversation. When you look down in the comments, you'll see how to log on to that conversation tomorrow at 6:30. We will be there and we'll be having another conversation following up from this conversation. More I don't know the best, more father-centered, and really for you to be able to let your hair down. I'll get your hair taped up. Let me say that. Let me say that better. Be able to get your hair taped up good in the conversation. So I welcome everybody to come and join that. Hey, again, we are here. Like, share, subscribe to us. We're moving every day. We're trying to do what I like to call, more than anything, I think, God's work for fathers. And I think that it is not blue or red. We just fathers. And with that being said, Father, repeat after me. I am a man of honor.
I am a man of honor.
I am a man of courage.
I am
a man of courage.
I am
I am.
I am.
I am.
I am a man of respect.
I
I
am
am
a
a
man
man
of
of
respect.
Man of respect.
I said, fathers, I am.
I am.
I say that you are.
You are.
I say that we are.
We
are
are
Championship
Championship
father.
father.
Ron, you froze? Yeah,
Ron
you
froze.
did.
All right, we want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. Thank you, brothers, for sharing. Thanks, everybody, for watching. You can join us again tomorrow night. If not, come back next Tuesday, 7 o'clock here on our YouTube page, Fatherhood Think Tank, and we'll be here with another interesting topic. Good night and love.
Hey, fellas,
Good
ladies,
night.
what's up, everybody?
Good
Be
night,
easy
God
now.
bless you all.